The President. Questions. Question 1, Mr. Chan Kin-por. Thank you, President. In 2018, the government launched the Towards 2025 Strategy and Action Plan to prevent and control non-communicable diseases in Hong Kong, setting out the targets for preventing and controlling non-communicable diseases to be achieved by 2025, which include halting the rise in diabetes and obesity. However, according to the Department of Health's report of Population Health Survey 2020 to 2022, 22% of the people in Hong Kong aged 15 to 84 are overweight and 32.6% are obese, which is an increase from the 2024 to 2025 level, indicating that obesity is on the rise. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, of the latest data on the obese population available to the government and the gap between such data and the target set in 2018? The frequency of surveys on the obese population in Hong Kong conducted by the Department of Health and the timing of the next survey. 2, of the measures taken by the government to halt the rise in obesity, whether it has reviewed the effectiveness of such measures and the reasons for their failure to effectively halt the rise in obesity. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. And 3, the National Health Commission launched a 3-year weight management year initiative last year, aiming to reduce the average annual increase in the obesity rate by 10%. Of the measures put in place by the government to tie in with this policy. Secretary for Health. President, obesity is a global problem. According to data from the World Health Organization, the global prevalence of obesity has more than doubled from 1990 to 2022. The situation worsened during the COVID-19 pandemic. The government of the Hong Kong SAR has all along been closely monitoring the obesity problem and launched the Towards 2025 Strategy and Action Plan to prevent and control non-communicable diseases in Hong Kong, or SAP, in 2018. With the focus on non-communicable diseases, including obesity, and their common behavioral risk factors, including an unhealthy diet and physical inactivity, to comprehensively promote a healthy lifestyle. In consultation with relevant bureaus and departments, we give our consolidated reply to the question from Mr. Chan Kin-por as follows. First, the SAP makes reference to the WHO's Global Action Plan for the Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Diseases 2013 to 2020. One of the SAP's objectives is to halt the rise in diabetes and obesity among individuals aged 18 to 84. This means ensuring that by 2025, the prevalence rates do not exceed the level from the 2014 to 2015 levels. The Department of Health conducts the population health survey roughly every 5 years, with the health behavior surveys conducted in between as regular surveillance. Mr. Chan Kin-por cited the latest survey, and that was the one done in 2020 to 2022. At that point, the overweight and obesity prevalence rate was 52.3%. That was higher than 47% of the level in 2014 to 15. But that was at the time of the COVID pandemic. It was a time when there was a major shift in people's lifestyle, lack of physical activity, for example, and also unhealthy diet. The 2025 to 26 population health survey is expected to start in the third quarter this year, and the findings are due in the end of 2026. The government will rely on that data to review its objectives and effectiveness of the SAP. In fact, we have noticed significant improvements in the situation after COVID. For example, the Population Health Survey 2020 to 22 showed that 24.8% of individuals aged 18 or above did not get enough physical activity. That was during the COVID years. But in the Health Behavior Survey 2023, the situation improved. That level was 14.8%. 2. Data from the Student Health Service of the Department of Health showed that the prevalence of overweight and obesity among primary and secondary students also showed remarkable improvement after COVID. The rate was 21.2% in 2020-11 to 17.9% in 2023-24 school year. That was the lowest level since the 2010-11. The figures are set out in the annex. The fundamental cause of obesity is an energy imbalance between calories consumed from food and drinks and calories expended in normal bodily functions. Adopting a healthy lifestyle, managing one's diet, and exercising are key to reducing the risk of obesity. The DH has adopted a life course and settings-based approach and implemented population-based or population-wide intervention measures and programs. For example, we have the whole school health program. Health reports are compiled for each participating school to recommend targeted school-based measures. That's to improve the physical activity and meals of primary and secondary students. The scheme now covers 800 schools, covering 70% of all primary and secondary schools in Hong Kong. The Joyful and Healthy Workplace program promotes healthy eating, physical activity, and mental health to employers and employees. Now, more than 3,400 organizations take part in the scheme, and the scheme covers more than 820,000 employees. The Eat Smart Restaurant Star program encourages restaurants to offer less salt, sugar, and oil with more vegetable and fruit dishes to encourage healthy eating. Now, more than 1,300 restaurants also take part in the program. We also have a walking initiative to help people understand the benefits of walking. Last year, we teamed up with Shenzhen and Zhuhai. Roughly 10,000 people took part. On primary health care, the district health centers actively promote the Life Course Preventive Care Plan. That's for creating or developing a healthy lifestyle for people from different age groups and help people build awareness of managing their own health. We have also established women wellness satellites, and they will also initiate weight management programs for women. Other departments and bureaus also create a favorable environment to help people adopt a healthy lifestyle. For example, the Education Bureau launched the Active Students, Active People campaign and the MVP A60 award scheme to encourage students to develop the habit of regular physical activity at an early stage. 2. The Environment and Ecology Bureau promotes sugar reduction. Its Committee on Reduction of Salt and Sugar in Food works with various departments and the food and beverage industry. The measures include implementing the salt-sugar label scheme for prepackaged food products that will help consumers identify low-sugar products. 3. The Leisure and Cultural Services Department offers diversified recreation and sports programs to promote the culture of sport for all in the community and at schools. Starting from 2009, the Sport for All Day has been held every year. Under the framework of One Country, Two Systems, the Health Bureau of the HASL works closely with the National Health Commission. The SAP is also aligned with our country's health policy. The government will continue reference the WHO's Global Action Plan and also be mindful of the NHC's weight management guidelines as we encourage the members of the public to build health awareness. We will work closely with stakeholders and the community to create a more conducive environment for health. Thank you, President. Mr. Chan Kin-por. The main reply says that in the 2022 survey, the prevalence of overweight and obese population was 51%. That's more than half of the people. And then in 2025 to 26, we will have another population survey, and then the findings are due in 2026. I hope the government will take a serious look at the results and come up with a strategy so that we can effectively bring down the healthcare costs. That's my suggestion. Secretary. I thank Mr. Chen for raising this question. This is also top of mind for us. Now we will go on the 47%, the level from 2024 to 25 as our basis. We will strive to keep the prevalence at or below the level of 47%, which is our basis now. We have seen a fall in the prevalence rate of obesity and overweight. We will continue to work towards that goal. Dr. Dennis Lam. Thank you, President. The WHO pointed out that obesity is a chronic illness, and that will also lead to higher risks of developing other diseases. And obesity can lead to 5 problems: hypertension, hyperglycemia, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, and high cholesterol and high levels of cholesterol. And that also means higher risks of disease with higher uric acid and also greater load on people's joints. Now we have the Healthy China initiative. Mr. Lai Haichao, the chairman of the National Health Commission, mentioned that our country attached importance to weight management. So on Healthy China, Healthy GBA, and Healthy Hong Kong, we should work on our institutions. We have the primary healthcare blueprint, and we can lead by example. My question is on obesity or weight management. How can we do something about the primary healthcare system so that it can play a role? Hong Kong leads in many health indicators. Nationwide, we are a leader in many domains. In terms of longevity, in terms of life expectancy, we have the longest life expectancy across the world. Our smoking prevalence is also among the lower ones. On overweight and obesity, based on our country's definition, we're also ahead in terms of the figures. Our national definition of obesity defines overweight as a BMI of 24 to 28. Anything above 28 is defined as obesity. We adopt a more rigorous approach. You go above 23 up to 25 in BMI, you are overweight. And for us, obesity is any BMI above 25. So our overweight and obesity prevalence is below the national average. So this is where we're doing well. Now on primary health care in obesity control, we have district health centers across the city. They offer health advisory services, and people visit these centers. They can go on a scale, and then on weight management, a healthy diet. There are also education programs at those centers. Primary health care can encourage people to take ownership of their own health, and that covers lifestyles and diet, as well as exercise. Mr. Martin Liao. The government is promoting primary health care. Does the government have any plans to go beyond just the 3 high problems? Will there be plans for more targeted measures to address obesity in the population? Secretary. In primary health care, the district health centers pursue education programs that cover people's lifestyle and diet. That's where the health promotion will focus on, so that people are in control of their own health. And that will cover diet and more physical activity. Dr. David Lam. 2 years ago, students from the Hong Kong Youth Medical School came to me. They proposed imposing a sugar tax, and we had the discussion with the Department of Health. Figures show that places with a sugar tax in place required manufacturers to label the sugar content in their products, and that can change people's preferences in shopping. So does the government have plans to impose a sugar tax? Secretary. We do have a committee on reduction of salt and sugar in food. That committee works on reducing salt and sugar in food. We also have a scheme on labels. So we have the salt sugar label scheme for prepackaged food products. That's to help consumers identify low sugar product. Dr. David Lam mentioned a sugar tax. We don't have such plans so far. Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, President. BMI alone is not good enough as a gauge of obesity. We should also be measuring body fat and also waist circumference as a way to measure obesity-related health risks. The best way to lose weight is to look at how much calories you consume, and then there are products on the market with claims that they help you get rid of grease or oil, and those products come with questionable provenance. So what will the government do to stop a regulation of such suspicious products, and what will there be public education to tell the public to guard against such product? When we say obesity, we're talking about a surplus of energy. You consume more than you expend. The member mentioned skinny jabs and other weight loss drugs. When drugs are involved, there are laws and regulations in place. When people are considering jabs, they should turn to healthcare professionals for advice. There will be continued public education. When people seek drug or other medical treatments, they should consult the professionals. Ms. Chen Hao-yan. The energy people get from food and drinks are a key factor in obesity. Roughly 10 years ago, the government set up the Committee on Reduction of Salt and Sugar in Food. Efforts were made to promote restaurants offering low sugar and low salt dishes, and then we had the Eat Smart Restaurant Star program. And then in 2016, at the staff canteens of the hospital authority, there are labels stating the calorie levels of dishes. So we have 3 programs. Can we integrate these programs? Can we have an accreditation program so that we can show people that you can integrate different kinds of information, salt, sugar, calories, so that people can consume more nutritious and low-calorie food? Secretary. Now we have the Committee on Reduction of Salt and Sugar in Food. This was also mentioned by the member. Officials from different departments sit on this committee, along with representatives from the catering industry. The work covers labeling of food items. There are labels telling people which products are low sugar and also the calorie levels. Restaurants are also encouraged to offer dishes with low oil and low salt levels. Now, on labeling the calorie level or contents for each dish in restaurants, such measures are in place in some countries, but the operation will be more complicated because we're not talking about prepackaged food. Instead, we're talking about food prepared at the restaurants. The committee has been discussing ways to reduce the intake of salt and sugar by people. We will continue to discuss that. Dr. Junius Ho. Members have discussed education, food, and drugs. Secretary, can we also talk about guidelines on behavior? We have to guide people to adopt a more active lifestyle. Otherwise, people just stay at home. They become homebodies. They do gaming. They do not exercise. So we have to guide these people. Can we do a point system? Say someone exercises more, they take part in community activities. And that's how people can consume energy. And we can do a stamp system. We do a point system. Now, for those who are health conscious and they contribute to the community, they should get priority access to healthcare. So can we take this carrot and stick approach? I thank Dr. Ho for making the point that diet aside, exercise also matters. People have to change their lifestyle. So we have this walking initiative launched by the Department of Health in 2022. That's encouraging people to walk 10,000 steps every day. There's a mobile app for people. So for those who hit the goal, they reach those targets, people get rewards. Last year, we worked with Shenzhen and Zhuhai on this initiative. In Hong Kong, roughly 10,000 people took part. We want people to change their habit in their everyday life. If people can take the stairs instead of taking the lift. We encourage people to walk or run whenever they can in place of taking public transport. So we have this journey-wide approach, the life course approach. We have measures for different age groups, for people with different health needs. We recommend exercise and a healthy diet for those people.
Hon LAU Chi-pang.
Question to Professor Lau Chi-pang. Thank you, President. It's been reported that every year around Qingming Festival, a large number of members of the public travel north with their children to pay tribute to their ancestors and visit their ancestral hometowns. On raising students' awareness of their hometowns and ancestral origins, will the government inform this council? 1. Given that in the reply to my question in 2022, the government has indicated that it would keep in view the suggestions from various sectors of society for follow-up action regarding the suggestion of adding the item on native place back to the student information form of students of different schools of the progress of the relevant work, including whether it will explicitly require students to fill in the correct information about their native places. If so, of the specific implementation timetable, if not, the reasons for that. 2. Whether the Education Bureau would consider incorporating the element of exploring one's roots into the teaching according to the students' native places, so as to raise their awareness of their hometowns and ancestral origins, if so, of the specific plans, if not the reasons for that. And 3, as there are views that the activities under the government's Klansman Culture Promotion Scheme are all organized by Klansman associations, it's difficult for such activities to cover the student level. Whether the government would consider launching Klansman cultural activities targeted at students, if so, of the specific plan, if not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Education. President, we attach great importance to nurturing students' sense of nationhood, encouraging schools to implement national education through a multi-pronged and mutual coordination approach and organizing different activities in a manner of organic integration and natural connection. We also integrate different elements into students' curricula. For instance, primary humanities covers the concepts of family members, family names, native places, and hometowns. This helps students understand and share the history and development of their hometowns, and this is to foster the affection of their native places and clansmen. Junior secondary history includes the topics and the development of various local Chinese organizations to help students learn about the services and contributions of relevant organizations promoting the virtues of philanthropy and mutual support. We treasure our historical legacy and never forget our roots. Chinese culture puts emphasis on filial piety and fraternal duty. We seek to cultivate students' sense of belonging towards our countries. Currently, we do not only rely on classroom education, but we also seek to shape students' life experiences, such as family gatherings, visits to relatives in the hometown, and so on. In addition to the various learning activities organized by schools, such as hometown cuisine sharing sessions and tours for students to explore their roots, many school-sponsoring bodies and schools in Hong Kong are named after clansmen associations, so students are generally familiar with the concept of native places. Our reply to the question raised by Professor Lau is as follows. There are divergent views on whether the column of native place should be added to the student information form. Some think that this can help enhance students' sentiment for the nation. Also, there are views that these are private information, and so when schools collect the information, they have to inform the parents and students. We understand that many schools are now adding back the column of native place to the student information form. In fact, this will allow students to trace their family history as well as cultural characteristics. However, we have a diverse culture in Hong Kong. We have to be flexible. One of the ways is to add the native place field in the student information form, but we cannot only rely on this method. To ensure students' understandings of their lineage, we have to have teaching inside and outside classrooms. For example, primary humanities cover family education as well as knowledge about their hometowns and native places. We think that we should allow students to understand about their native places through their culture as well as scenic spots of their hometowns. We think that it is worthwhile to promote the different values. In a recent professional conference of teachers, teachers shared their open lessons titled My Family, learn about family names, native places, and hometowns, and exchanged their experiences with other schools. Some schools choose their students' native places as the destinations of sister school exchanges and in the mainland exchange programs to allow students to learn about the country's development. This is a common practice. We think that by adding the field of native place in the student form, we can allow teachers to learn more about the learning needs of students, and this will make learning and teaching more effective. However, we understand that some schools, because of various reasons, they have different views on collecting information, and this does not apply to ethnic minority students. That's why they're not asking the students to fill in the field of native place on the form. So we will not require all schools to add this field to the student form. There are diverse cultures in schools, and there are schools from different backgrounds. We have to respect different cultures, and we therefore encourage schools to communicate with stakeholders, and we should adopt a multi-pronged approach to teach students about their native places as well as their ancestral origins. This is to help them respect different cultures of different regions. To deepen the public's understanding of and sense of belonging to their hometowns and foster the spirit of loving the country and Hong Kong, the Chief Executive announced in the 2023 policy address the launch of the Klansman Culture Promotion Scheme for 3 years, for application by Klansman associations to subsidize their organization of activities to promote and preserve hometown culture, and to facilitate exchanges between Hong Kong and the mainland. There is no restriction on the form of the activities as long as they are non-profit making in nature and in line with the objectives of the scheme. Klansmen associations applying for the subsidy may, having regard to their needs, explore collaboration with other event organizers in organizing the activities. For example, the Federation of Hong Kong Guangdong Community Organizations conducted the Guangdong Intangible Cultural Heritage in Schools program at the end of last year. Nearly 1,000 students and parents benefited from the event. In conclusion, we have to adopt a multi-pronged and coordinated approach that integrates learning within and beyond the classroom. And education on native places is one key element. To enhance students' awareness of their native places, it involves school education as well as social atmosphere and family education. It requires the concerted efforts and collaboration of different stakeholders in society as well. Various departments of the SAR government, including the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau and the Education Bureau, will continue to be responsible for the relevant promotional work. Through listening to the views of different stakeholders, including relevant organizations, schools, and parents, we will forge a consensus among different sectors and create a conducive atmosphere. We will work with various stakeholders to cultivate in the young people the spirit of treasuring their historical legacy and never forgetting their roots. Thank you. Professor Lau Chi-pang. Thank you, President. Now, tracing our roots and ancestral origins start from our family. Does the government have any plans on focusing on parent-teacher association to encourage parents of the association to bring their children to their hometowns for visiting or for visiting their relatives? Will there be relevant subsidy schemes as well as education guidelines to subsidize parent-teacher association to hold activities to help students explore their roots? Secretary, we support parents and children to explore their roots, and parents are important stakeholders in this respect. In promoting our Chinese culture as well as national education, we have reserved resources to encourage schools to step up parent education. As mentioned, we work with parents as well as schools to encourage parents to bring their children to their hometowns for visiting their relatives. So schools have been working on this, and on native place education, family education, and exploring roots and hometowns. These are part of family education. Thank you. Dr. So Chun Wing, President. We need to teach young people to treasure their historical legacy and never forget their roots. And learning about their hometowns is crucial to enhance students' understanding of their hometowns, can help cultivate their patriotic sentiment. There are different subsidy schemes launched by the government. There are also mainland exchange programs. However, students come from different native places. If we leave it for schools to hold hometown visits, it will lack cost-effectiveness. Will the government consider working with Klansmen associations and subsidize them to hold cross-school hometown visits? The activities can be counted as part of the mainland exchange programs for primary and secondary school students. Will the government promote this? Secretary, there are different types of mainland exchange programs for students. Some of them are for academic subjects. There are also different thematic exchange tours. For example, tours themed around Dongjiang, water or river, and those that encourage students to learn about their lineage. There are also many schools named after clansmen associations. For these schools, they from time to time organize with clansmen associations or relevant organizations cultural activities for students to learn about their hometown culture. So we've been working on this. There are resources for life-wide learning from schools, and according to our observation and understanding, clansmen associations and relevant organizations are very willing to help students learn about their hometown culture and cultivate in them their affection for their hometowns. They're very willing to subsidize this kind of activities. If we can integrate these resources, we'll be able to hold more activities. Dr. Junius Ho. This is a way to inherit Chinese culture. This is to revive our culture and also to rejuvenate our nation. So education on native places is crucial. It is important for us to learn about our native places and ancestral origins. In this sense, will Secretary think about how to teach students about the application of their family tree? And how will you incorporate constitution, civilization, and democracy and harmony into the teaching of native places and ancestral origins, so that we won't adopt an approach that's too rigid in our education, and at the same time we can ensure organic integration of these elements into the education for students? Secretary. This is an important part of our national education. We have been adopting a multi-pronged and mutual coordination approach, and we want to ensure organic integration and natural connection. We encourage schools to teach students about their hometown culture. There are schools named after clansmen associations. So, ancestral origins, hometown culture, and education on native places is part of our day-to-day curriculum. Mr. Perry Yu. I thank Professor Lau for this question. I agree that we need to enhance students' awareness of their hometowns and ancestral origins. The younger generation has a very weak understanding in this regard. I asked my colleagues just now whether they filled in the part about native places on the student form when they were little. Well, they did not understand what it means. In fact, when we were asked to fill out our student handbook, we had to fill out the column about native place. Well, for various reasons, the secretary said it would not require schools to do so. But at the same time, I don't see how the government has been working proactively to encourage students to do so. Do you know how many schools are asking their students to fill out this part on the student form, and what measures will be put in place to encourage schools to do so? Secretary. As mentioned, from the perspectives of teaching students about their hometown culture and their ancestral origins, apart from adding the field of native places on the student information form, well, starting from the primary school level all the way to secondary level, in terms of the civic education curriculum, we impart in students the sense of hometown as well as nationhood. As said, it really depends on schools. But we do see that more and more schools are asking students to fill in the field of native place on the student information form. Hong Kong is a place with diverse cultures. We have students from different ethnic backgrounds studying in the same school. So for schools who aren't asking their students to fill out this part on the form, we leave room for them to adopt a school-based approach and practice. We encourage schools to organize activities to teach students about their hometown, so to enhance their understanding in this regard. Ms. Nixie Lam, I remember when I was visiting the mainland one time, there was a piece of paper teaching me about my hometown as well as the history of my hometown. I think we can have young people learn about the history of their hometowns this way. It would be very interesting. This can be incorporated into the curricula as well as extracurricular activities. Can we do it in a digital way? Secretary, according to our colleagues, based on their visits to different schools have been promoting this through various ways. For example, students are asked to share about their hometown cuisine because we have students from different native places in one school. Even for Fujian Secondary School, they do not only accept students from Fujian. So we have to ensure inclusiveness. Perhaps I'll ask my colleagues to share with you. He has brought with him some pictures. Well, please clip your microphone on the collar. My apologies. As mentioned by the secretary just now, the primary humanities teaching circle, they have been sharing about some successful examples and experiences. In this academic year, one school taught primary 1 students about their ancestral origins. As you can see from this picture, the teacher spent a lot of effort through lively means and IT elements. The teacher enabled students to take part in the activity actively. The teacher first asked the students where their home place or native places are. And then she asked the students to put the photos into the map, and she asked the students to point out their hometowns on the map. There were also worksheets as well as discussions. At primary 1 level, through iPads as well as digital devices, students can share with each other. You can see that they're all very excited. They were not shy to share with each other about their knowledge and experiences. So as told by the secretary, through different means, schools have been making the teaching and learning more interesting. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. According to the secretary's reply, if students know their native places, it will help them enhance their understanding of their hometowns and ancestral origins. And native places education can help cultivate students in the sense of belonging towards our country. But at the same time, the secretary is not asking all schools to have their students fill out the native place field on the student form. While the government adopts a result-oriented approach, will the government carry out systemic studies on how effectively this measure can be put in place? Secretary, as mentioned, we respect the different situations faced by schools. However, we do recognize the importance of the education on native places, and we also encourage schools to add the native place field back to the student form. We are not mandating schools to do so, but it doesn't mean that we find it unnecessary. We will continue to encourage schools to communicate with the relevant stakeholders. Well, we're talking about adding a field on the student form. This is different from having students share with each other about their hometowns in the class. This is because it involves collection of personal information. Will, however, help schools to move towards this direction. Thank you.
Question 3, Mr. CHAN Pui-leung. Thank you, President. There are views that roadside skips unlawfully occupying public roads not only affects the safety of road users, but also poses environmental hygiene problems. In this connection, will the government inform this Council, 1. of the information on the enforcement actions taken by the Hong Kong Police and Lands Department against roadside skips in the past 5 years, including the number of complaints or referrals received, the number of statutory notices posted or warnings issued to operators, as well as the number of skips removed. Among them, the number of cases in which prosecutions were instituted and the number of convicted cases, as well as the relevant penalties imposed. 2. of the current utilization situations of the 4 sites made available for use by the trade for storing skips. As the government indicated in its reply to a question raised by the Council in May 2023 that the skip storage site in Changkwano Area 137 would become part of the new community, and that the government would make arrangements in due course of the progress on the relevant arrangements, including whether alternative sites will be identified for the operation of the skips trade, if so, of the details, if not the reasons for that. And 3, as there are views that the regulation of roadside skips involves a number of government departments, whether the government will consider assigning a designated department to take full responsibility so as to improve enforcement efficiency, if so, of the details, if not the reasons for that. Secretary for Environment and Ecology. President. Construction waste is generated from construction sites, buildings near maintenance, buildings under maintenance, and shops under renovation. It is then transported to public fuel banks or landfills for disposal. Before skips emerged in the market, most construction waste from construction and renovation sites was piled up on the roadside before it was collected for delivery. This not only affected environmental hygiene, but also caused nuisance to residents and pedestrians, and even affected road safety. Skips could store a relatively large quantity of waste, in particular construction waste. Using skips prevents waste from being scattered here and there and helps maintain a clean and hygienic environment and ensure road safety. It also helps the construction and renovation industry handle construction waste in a neat and orderly manner. Skips are primarily placed at site of use, such as construction sites, renovation sites, shopping malls, housing estates, and designated locations nearby to collect waste generated by construction or renovation works in the buildings nearby. Skips that are not being used need to be stored. According to a questionnaire survey with the trade, there are about 1,500 roadside skips in Hong Kong. About half of them need to be stored, while there is only storage space for 330 skips on 4 pieces of land provided. Under such circumstances, some skip operators may place the skips on the roadside or other improper locations. The management of skips straddles various bureaus and departments. Through the Joint Working Group on Management of Roadside Skips, or the Working Group for short, the government coordinates the work on enhancing the management of roadside skips amongst the Environment and Ecology Bureau, the Development Bureau, the Transport and Logistics Bureau, the Environmental Protection Department, the Lands Department, the Transport Department, the Highways Department, the Hong Kong Police Force, the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department, and the Home Affairs Department. Since skips placed on the roadside are also a problem of district concern, the Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration also looks into this problem with the bureaus and departments concerned through interdepartmental meetings. In response to the question raised by Mr. CHAN Pui-leung, in consultation with the Police and Lands Department, a consolidated reply is as follows. Currently, the Hong Kong Police Force handles complaints involving roadside skips in accordance with the Summary Offences Ordinance Cap 228 Over the past 5 years, the police has received a total of 5,913 complaints about skips. Public officers will, in light of the circumstances at the scene, make assessments and issue advice and/or warnings to skip operators concerned if located. In most cases, the operators would remove the skips on their own within hours after receiving the advice and/or warning. There were 5 cases where the police had to engage contractors for removal of the skips. A total of 18 cases were prosecuted under police summons and convicted. The convicted person were fined between $300 and $9,000 by the court. Over the past 5 years, the Lands Department has received a total of 3,674 complaints concerning skips. Among these complaints, 3% were referred by other departments, including the police, and the other 97% were lodged by the public. Within 2 working days upon receiving a complaint or referral, the Lands Department will conduct an on-site inspection and post a notice in accordance with Section 6 of the Land Miscellaneous Provisions Ordinance, Cap 28, requiring the person concerned to remove the skip and stop occupying the government land before the specified deadline, no less than 1 clear day. Otherwise, it will be removed by the Lands Department's contractor. Over the past 5 years, the Lands Department has removed a total of 27 skips, while the remaining ones were removed by the relevant persons on their own before the deadlines. 2. As mentioned above, there are about 1,500 skips in Hong Kong. Considering factors such as job rotations, the trade estimates that about 600 to 700 idling skips require space for storage each day. At present, the government has provided 4 sites to the trade for the storage of idling skips through the short-term tenancy mechanism. These sites are located in Pak Shing Kok, an area next to the Cheung Kwan O Area 137 Field Bank, Siu Lan Shui in Tuen Mun, and adjacent to Tsing Nam Street in Tsing Yi respectively, altogether providing storage space for a total of 330 skips. The site in Pak Shing Kok can store about 110 skips. The site next to the Cheung Kwan O 137 Field Bank can store about 120 skips. The site in Siu Lan Shui in Tuen Mun can store about 80 skips. And the site in Tsing Nam Street in Tsing Yi can store about 20 skips. To tie in with the future residential development of Cheung Kwan O 137, according to the current development timetable, the site leased to the trade under short-term tenancy STT for storing skips is expected to be returned in the second quarter of 2026, the earliest. Meanwhile, the government has completed the open tendering process for a site at Cheng Chau Wan on Lantau Island, which is initially expected to accommodate about 100 skips to be awarded within this year. To further improve the situation that some skip operators place their skips on the roadside or other improper locations, the working group also strives to locate more suitable sites for skip storage by the trade through STT tenders. The management of roadside skip straddles different departments and involves various pieces of legislation. The government has its reason to coordinate relevant departments' work through the working group. The government is adopting a multi-pronged approach and looking for more effective ways to address the problem of improper placement of skips. At the current stage, the government focuses on enhancing enforcement on illegally placed skips that pose safety risks to road users. Thank you, President. Mr. CHAN Pui-leung. Thank you, President. I have to declare that I work in an insurance company. Currently, there's no mandatory registration system in relation to skips. There's no mandatory requirement to buy third-party responsibility insurance either. In the event of an accident, skip operators or the owner of the skips may not have the financial means to pay the relevant compensations. There's a lack of protection for owners. I'd like to ask the administration whether you will consider having a registration system or mandate skip owners or operators to buy third-party responsibility insurance in order to safeguard public interests. Secretary. President, regarding skips being placed on the roadside, which causes different problems, The designs and manufacture are quite fundamental. That's why some vehicles could not see these skips, and this causes danger. There's a certification arrangements. The government is liaising with the trade, including property management sector, CIC, as well as the insurance sector. The aim is to put in place a certification system. There need to be reflective stripes attached to skips. When we have such a certification mechanism, this will help to address the situation. In the past few years, the government has been promoting this scheme. Most skip operators have joined the relevant scheme. That is the voluntary skips registration pilot scheme. When there are benefits to the operation of the trade, or when there is better protection for the public, we will continue to keep enhancing the scheme. Mr. Martin Liao. President, we have the EPD guideline and the TD guideline. They are for voluntary compliance by skip operators. There is no mandatory requirement. These two sets of guidelines were issued by the respective departments in 2007 and 2008. I'd like to ask how the administration would review the contents of the guidelines. Would you introduce regulatory systems into the guidelines, including mandating skip operators to comply with the relevant guidelines? Secretary. Thank you, President. There are three main problems in relation to skips. One, they're illegally placed on the roadside. They occupy a lot of road space. We need sufficient places to store these skips. In my reply, I just now said that we are working very hard to locate more sites to store these skips. On Lantau Island, we have identified a site to store 100 skips. We'll continue to look for more sites, including areas adjacent to Changquan-no. The second issue is that some skips are scattered around in the streets. They may cause obstruction to traffic, or they may pose immediate risks. We will enhance enforcement or legal or law enforcement through the Joint Working Group on Management of Roadside Skips. As I mentioned, the Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration will look into this problem. The third type of problem is how to improve the design of the skips so that they will meet the standards. The aim is to enhance safety. We are already working on this. That's why I said we are already addressing the situation through these three methods. Member mentioned guidelines which have been in use for a long time. Is there any room for enhancements? Through the Joint Working Group and different bureaus and departments, we will review the contents of the guidelines to identify room for improvement. Thank you. Mr. Duncan Chiu. In the main reply, the Secretary mentioned the Joint Working Group. Is a reporting mechanism being used? Or does it take preventive action such as using drones, smart lampposts to conduct inspections in order to enhance its preventive function? President, the Joint Working Group includes different policy bureaus and departments. They don't take action only after they receive complaints, but of course, this is one of the aspects of work that it needs to conduct. 1. The joint working group will consider the overall situation to identify places to store skips. This was mentioned in my main reply. In addition, they will also review how to improve the design and the operation of skips so that they will be safer on the roads, thereby minimizing the risks caused to road users. Just how I mentioned the introduction of a voluntary skips registration pilot scheme. Through the work of different policy bureaus and departments, we are identifying room for improvement in relation to skips. We want to better manage skips. We will also take cross-departmental actions at black spots. We will be on the offensive to take action to combat such skips. A total of 174 inspections and law enforcement actions were taken. We will work hard to improve the use of skips, and we will also take into account the overall situation so that they won't obstruct traffic on the roads. Thank you. Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, President. I've read Mr. Chan's oral question. These skips unlawfully occupying public roads not only affects the safety of road users but also poses environmental hygiene problems. The government was asked how to enhance law enforcement efficiency. The question is cast in a negative light, but I'm glad to see that the Secretary recognizes the functions of these skips. There's a need to have these skips on the road. 300-odd skips have no space to be stored in Hong Kong. This is exactly where the problem lies. I am disappointed. It seems in your answer you didn't mention any method that could help you expeditiously identify temporary sites to store these skips. Of course, if we can implement a system or introduce a system, I welcome this method. I'd like to ask the Secretary how we will expedite the handling of these skips. Secretary, just now I talked about the problems caused by skips. There are a few aspects. In other words, it is not the case that when we have sufficient space to store these skips, then the problem will be gone. It is not this case. For the sake of convenience, some skip operators or owners may place them in places that would cause obstruction to traffic, or they may even lead to potential risks. We need to enhance law enforcement action to combat these malpractices. Member is right. Indeed, we need to look for more space or site to store these skips. I thank Mr. Chan for escalating these matters to my position. I have been urging my colleagues to follow up on this matter. I have already instructed different departments to look into the situation, but we do have procedures to go through. For instance, we need to consult the district council. We also need to liaise with the trade. That's why it will take some time. I've also instructed my colleagues that we need to discuss with the trade places where recycle bags could be stored, or skips. For example, there could be double-deck racks to store these skips. We can even put smaller skips inside the bigger ones. But by the double stacking of skips, we can store more skips in one single location. We are liaising with the trade to see if we can enhance the operation and the situation. We hope to expeditiously solve the problem. Thank you. Mr. Dennis Leung. In the main reply of the Secretary, over the past 5 years, there were a total of 9,000 complaints. However, for law enforcement action or prosecution, less than 1 to 2%. When it comes to road management, be it construction works or not, there's a vigorous mechanism. For instance, one will have to apply to the police force or one will have to conduct road tests. For illegally parked vehicles, the police will take action. But for skips, they are simply scattered around in the city on the road. Just now, the Secretary mentioned a registration pilot scheme. But so far, we haven't yet seen any registration scheme in place to better manage these skips. How to make it safe to store these skips without causing obstruction to traffic or posing risks to road users? Secretary, just now in my reply, I already said that we are liaising with the trade. We have put in place a voluntary skips registration pilot scheme. This has to do with the design of the skips. Suitable logos or reflective strips will be attached to the skips, so in the evening, drivers will also be able to identify these skips so that they won't crash into these skips. Most train operators have taken part in this program. That is because if they had not joined the scheme, it would be very difficult for them to take out insurance. Through this scheme, a lot of skips have been registered. We'll continue to promote this scheme within the industry. With more publicity and promotion, I believe this will help the government to address the problem, and it will be able to encourage all skip operators to take part in the scheme. This will improve road safety. Thank you.
Hon LAM Chun-sing.
Question 4, Mr. Lam Chun-sing. Thank you, President. In May this year, the government announced various measures to promote the silver economy. There are views that in terms of unleashing silver productivity, the authorities should introduce more measures to help grassroots elderly to overcome employment difficulties and improve employment conditions. In this connection, the government informed its council, 1, as quite a number of grassroots elderly persons have relayed that under the existing labor importation policies, employers tend to hire younger imported workers, resulting in fewer job opportunities for the elderly, particularly for the job categories covered by the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. Whether the government will consider tightening such scheme, for example, by setting quota ceilings for all job categories so as to enhance employment opportunities for the elderly. 2, as some elderly job seekers have relayed that even if they met the job requirements, some employers explicitly indicated that they refuse to hire them due to their advanced age. Whether the authorities will actively study the enactment of legislation to combat age discrimination in the workplace. And 3, given that the government proposed in 2023 to increase tax deduction for mandatory provident fund voluntary contributions made by employers for their employees aged 65 or above to encourage them to make contributions for mature employees, with a view to increasing their retirement savings of the silver-haired group, and they proposed in the 2024 policy address to put the relevant measure under the work of the working group on promoting silver economy of the progress of taking forward the relevant measure. Thank you, President. Secretary for Labor and Welfare. President, the government has been implementing various measures to assist job seekers in securing employment. Taking account of the employment needs of the older and middle-aged persons, the government provides diversified employment support and promote elderly-friendly employment practices to encourage and assist them to re-enter or remain in the employment market and to unleash the labor force of older persons. On the 15th of July last year, the Labor Department LD launched the 3-year re-employment allowance pilot scheme to encourage persons aged 40 or above who have not been in paid work for 3 consecutive months or more to rejoin the employment market. Each eligible participant who has worked for 12 months continuously will be provided with a re-employment allowance up to $20,000. Response to the scheme is very favorable. As of June this year, over 45,000 participants and nearly 23,000 placements were recorded. About a quarter of the participants and placements are persons aged 60 or above. In tandem with the above scheme, LD, through the training subsidy of the employment program for the elderly and middle-aged, encouraged employers to hire persons aged 40 or above and provide them with training to uplift the work skills of older and middle-aged persons. In consultation with the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau, FSTB, the reply to the member's question is as follows. 1. On the premise of ensuring employment priority for local workers, the government suitably allows employers to apply for importation of workers to replenish the labor force in Hong Kong. LD has implemented the Enhanced Supplementary Labor Scheme, ESLS, since the 4th of September 2023 to suspend the general exclusion of the 26 job categories as well as unskilled or low-skilled posts from labor importation under the previous Supplementary Labor Scheme for 2 years. When implementing ESLS, LD is committed to safeguarding employment priority for local workers. Applicant employers of ESLS must undertake a 4-week local recruitment exercise and give priority to employing suitable local workers to fill the vacancies at a salary not lower than the prevailing median monthly wage of a comparable position in the market. ESLS requires that employers taking on local job seekers through any recruitment channels during the local recruitment period must not offer employment terms less favorable than those agreed by the LD, nor can they impose on job seekers any restrictive requirements such as age or gender, etc. ESLS also requires employers to meet the manning ratio requirement of full-time local employees to imported workers of 2:1 on a continuous basis. At the same time, employers should not displace serving local workers with imported workers. To protect employment opportunities of local workers, employers should retrench imported workers first in the event of redundancy. To further strengthen the protection of employment priority for local workers, LD implemented new measures on the 17th of June 2025, including displaying the name of applicant companies on the Interactive Employment Service website when publishing the jobs vacancies in respect of ESLS applications which passed the initial screening and commenced the 4-week local recruitment process after the date to increase the transparency of local recruitment and encourage job seekers to apply for relevant jobs. LD reviewed the experience and effectiveness of ESLS, including the scheme's coverage, operation, and implementation arrangements measured to promote and ensure employment priority for local workers, including older persons, measures to protect the rights and benefits of imported workers, as well as other requirements and matters relating to ESLS. The government will take full account of and balance the views of stakeholders during the review when mapping out the future arrangements. 2. The government is committed to eliminating all forms of discriminatory ideas and behaviors. In the realm of employment, the government encourages employers to adopt the principle of count on talent, not age, in employment. When assessing the abilities of candidates or employees and use reasonable and standardized selection criteria. According to the results of a survey conducted by the CNSD, the vast majority of respondents did not view age as an important factor affecting employment, reflecting that age discrimination is not a major problem in Hong Kong's employment market. The government will continue to promote and uphold equal employment opportunities by disseminating and advocating the message of fairness in employment, and as well as strengthening training and retraining. 3. The proposed tax incentive to employers to make more MPF voluntary contributions for their employees aged 65 or above aims to encourage more mature employees to consider staying in the labor force and continue to contribute to economic growth after reaching the age 65 while increasing their retirement savings. Given that their views on the limited effect for this standalone measure and recommendations that this measure should be combined with other initiatives on silver economy for creating synergy. The Chief Executive's 2024 policy address announced that the proposal will be included in the work of the working group on promoting silver economy. Upon review, the working group considered that the proposal has complicated the policy objective of FPF, and the restriction of employees receiving voluntary contributions also cast doubt on the effectiveness of the proposal. In terms of encouraging the elderly to join the labor force, the working group has already rolled out various targeted measures to help unleash silver productivity as part of the 30 measures for promoting silver economy announced on the 27th of May this year, such as a core priority to post-50s for receiving training consultation service, reviewing the re-employment allowance pilot scheme, and stepping up the promotion of elderly-friendly employment practices. The government considers that the resources should be concentrated on the aforementioned measures to promote employment of older persons in a more focused and direct manner. Thank you. Mr. LAM Chun-sing. Thank you, President. In the main reply, the government said that the CNSD has conducted a survey which shows that age discrimination is not a problem in Hong Kong. I wonder if the survey was done in 2021. According to a study conducted by the Equal Opportunities Commission, it is found that the age discrimination problem is much more serious today than in 2012. I'm not asking the government to legislate against age discrimination, but I wonder if the government will adopt more proactive measures by updating their guidelines on eliminating age discrimination at workplace, by allowing employees to lodge complaints so that the Labor Department can step in and mediate. If the guidelines is not effective, the government can consider amending the legislation. Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, President. We have been adopting the principle of count on talent, not age and employment. To create more job opportunities for the older persons and middle-aged people, we have various measures. We have re-employment allowance pilot scheme. For example, to create job opportunities for this group of people, given the limited resources, we will work with the labor sector to find ways to create more opportunities for elderly and middle-aged people who are interested to work. Mr. Chao Xiu-chung, thank you. In the main reply of the administration, they have not given us a concrete answer on the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. It is said that there are only 25,000 imported workers who have come through the ESLS, accounting for just 1% of the total labor force. However, if we look at to individual sector, the case is very much different. If we look at catering, for bartenders, dishwashers, chefs, we have imported some 26,600 people. According to the latest statistics of the Labor Department and the CNSD, we have some 218,900 workers who have come through the ESLS, which account for 12% of the total labor force. If the Secretary does not tighten the ESLS, what other measures do we have to ensure the employment priority for local workers, including grassroots elderly? Secretary, thank you. Mr. Chao talked about the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. The scheme ensures employment priority for local workers. Local employers have to conduct a local recruitment exercise for 4 weeks before they import their workers. In other words, if local workers are interested in the job, they will be given the opportunity. The reason why there was an increase in the number of workers coming through the ESLS is not because of the scheme. We have to look at a host of factors. The percentage of imported workers in the total labor force is very low. Take the catering industry as an example. Restaurants found it very hard to hire dishwashers and cleaners and chefs. That's why we have been imported so many workers under the ESLS. We have many restaurants serving different cuisine in Hong Kong. That's why some owners may need to import chefs from other places who are expert in such a delicacy. Thank you. Ms. Lam So-wai. Thank you, President. We have to unleash silver productivity. The elderly persons are faced with challenges in the labor force. Entrepreneurship is a form of employment. Will the administration, say, create a silver-haired entrepreneur fund to help elderly persons who are interested in starting their own business? Thank you, Secretary. Thank you. This is not under the purview of the Labor and Welfare Bureau. I will relay the suggestions to the working group on promoting silver economy led by the Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration, Professor William Wong. President, we have to unleash silver productivity. I have been talking to IT teachers who have been retired because there are not enough IT teachers in schools. So I wonder if the administration will create a team of silver-haired IT teachers so that they can continue to contribute to the education sector. As a result, the schools can hire enough IT teachers. Secretary, I'm not from the education sector, but I think that the suggestion is great. We have a shrinking labor force and our labor market is aging. People aged above 16 who have retired are still productive. We are happy to see any sector gathering a pool of talents to continue to contribute to the society upon retirement. Professor Priscilla Leung. Thank you, President. I have been advocating for this silver-haired entrepreneurship fund, but Ms. Lam So-wai has put the similar question, so I will ask another one. People aged 65 to 70 under the definition of UNESCO is still in their golden age. We must leverage on the wisdom of this group of people. I wonder if the administration can create a time bank. We have to encourage people who have retired to seek a second life by volunteering. Or offer high-end knowledge at schools. This group of people can also work as tutors for subdivided units households. This group of people may not seek to enhance their income. They just want to contribute to the society and lead a meaningful life. This concept of time bank has been adopted in North Europe. Is this a suggestion that the administration can consider? Secretary, thank you. This is a great suggestion. I will relay the suggestion to the working group on promoting silver economy led by the Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration. Thank you. Mr. Luk Chung-hong. President, the Secretary did not address the issue of age discrimination at workplace directly. Even if the issue is not serious, we have to prevent age discrimination from becoming prevalent. I think that this is the right time for us to act on it. If there's no discrimination at workplace, then how come the employment program for the elderly and middle-aged is not as attractive? Because under the program, the government subsidized each employee with $4,000. For people aged 60 or above, they can get this allowance for 12 months. How come there are only a few hundred applications for the program? Is it because employers don't want to hire elderly and middle-aged people, or is it because the requirements is too restrictive? Will the administration review the employment program for the elderly and middle-aged so that more elderly and middle-aged people can re-enter the labor market? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, President. I don't think that we have to overinterpret the outcome of the program. We have been promoting the employment program for the elderly and middle-aged. Employers are well aware of the program. The reality is, however, employers are already hiring people aged 40. They have no need to participate in their program. Our median age in Hong Kong is already 48. Many employees are over 40 years old. If the employer is already hiring people aged 40 or above, they may not find there to be such a need to join the program. This does not mean that the program is not successful. We do hope that more employers will join the program so that more elderly and middle-aged people will join the labor market. Dr. Jonius Ho. The employment problem for elderly and middle-aged has been addressed by the government, but the goal has not been met so far. What is the reason for that? Perhaps silver-haired people like to travel rather than work. There are also perhaps health issues with this group of people. They may suffer from headache. They may have to apply for sick leave very often. All these hinder elderly and the middle-aged people from re-entering the labor force. I think that we have to offer this group of people protection. I'm talking about health insurance. With health insurance, elderly people or middle-aged people don't have to go to government clinics. People, after they've retired, don't have to contribute to the MPF scheme. If we offer them such protection, then people will be more encouraged to contribute to the society and share their wisdom and experience to the younger generation. Let me give you an example. If you pay, say, 30,000 premium for an insurance policy, you will be protected. And the coverage could be about $20 million. This is how we can incentivize elderly people to re-enter the labor force. Can we mandate the employers to take out health insurance for elderly people who work for them? Secretary, I thank Dr. Ho for his suggestions. As to what kind of health protection employers offer is up to them. We know that the elderly and the middle-aged people are very much concerned about their health. We will encourage employers to offer more health protection. Thank you.
Question 5, Ms. Maggie CHAN. Thank you, President. It is learned that the Department of Justice, or the DOJ, has been actively promoting the application of legal technology, or law tech, and AI in the legal sector. There are views that the government should actively develop AI tools, for example, large language models developed by the Hong Kong Generative AI Research and Development Center, for application in areas of the common law, so as to enhance the operational efficiency and competitiveness of the legal sector. In this connection, would the government inform this Council, 1. Whether it has currently developed large language models for application in areas of the common law, if so, of the specific details and the implementation timetable, if not, the reasons for that. 2. Whether it has plans to organize law tech and AI summits or international exhibitions with the mainland on a regular basis, so as to promote exchanges and cooperation between the mainland and Hong Kong in law tech. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. Whether it has plans to introduce law tech from the mainland and apply it in areas of Hong Kong common law, as well as promote the mainland's AI legal service products to Hong Kong and overseas. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. And 3. Of the measures in place to ensure that small and medium-sized law firms in Hong Kong can benefit from the development of law tech and AI, such as providing technical support, introducing a tax allowance for law tech equipment, and subsidizing their procurement of law tech-related equipment. Secretary for Justice. President, Hong Kong Generative Artificial Intelligence Research and Development Center, or HKGAI, an inter-school cooperative research center led by the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, has developed the first local large language model, or LLM, based on deep-seek technology with full parameter fine-tuning. HKGAI V1. Hong Kong GAI has developed multiple vertical applications for various public service sectors based on this local LLM, including the generative AI documents assistance application, HK Pilots, and the legal-related Lexi Hong Kong. The DOJ is currently participating in the pilot use of HK Pilots and is considering participating in the trial of Lexi Hong Kong. At the same time, the Faculty of Law of the CUHK has recently collaborated with an AI software company to develop a legal information AI model based on the Cantonese LLM to facilitate the digital transformation of the legal system and industry. Wise Law Digital Technology, a company incubated by the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, has also recently announced its innovation achievements in legal AI products. The DOJ will collaborate with Hong Kong GAI and other relevant government departments or institutions based on the trial results, market technology development, the needs of the legal sector and the community, and related resource considerations to examine and promote the further application of AI in the legal sector, especially LLMs related to Hong Kong law. 2. The DOJ attaches great importance to the developments of law tech and AI, and believes that forums and exhibitions are important platforms for fostering exchange and cooperation. Currently, the DOJ is actively preparing to hold the first large-scale activity open to global participants, with a view to creating a diverse and open exchange platform to promote the sharing of wisdom and experience across various regions. We note that there are currently a number of well-developed law tech enterprises in mainland China. Since mainland law tech is now primarily designed for the mainland legal system, it may not be directly applicable to Hong Kong's common law market. However, we strongly encourage mainland law tech enterprises to set up in Hong Kong to explore the local legal market, develop AI products suitable for the Hong Kong common law market, and use Hong Kong as a springboard to develop markets in other common law jurisdictions overseas. To promote the development of law tech, the DOJ established the Consultation Group on Law Tech Development in January this year and invited the industry and various stakeholders to jointly study and formulate policy measures related to law tech. Members of the Consultation Group include representatives from the legal and dispute resolution sectors, law schools, and the law tech industry. There are also representatives from small and medium-sized law firms whose presence ensures that the policies will suit the needs of practitioners. The Consultation Group notes in particular the challenges faced by small and medium-sized law firms in using law tech. In addition to economic factors, small and medium-sized law firms often have limited understanding of law tech. Traditional practice models tend to rely less on technology, which affects their willingness to adopt new technologies. In response to this situation, the DOJ has accepted the recommendations made by the Consultation Group and plans to promote the use of technology in the legal industry progressively in 3 stages. Phase 1. Law tech awareness and education. The aim of the first stage of the policy on promoting law tech is to change certain ingrained mindsets and practices within the sector. By raising their awareness, helping them to understand the benefits that law tech can bring to the profession, as well as the risks that accompany. To this end, we are organizing a series of law tech-related roundtables and events to raise the profession's understanding of law tech and to facilitate the exchange and sharing of information between the profession and law tech experts to enable them to plan for viable adoption of law tech. The DOJ is also aware of the importance of educating law students about law tech. We will work with stakeholders in the legal education sector to strengthen training related to law tech in their curricula through the Standing Committee on Legal Education and Training platform. We are also planning to draft and publish a roadmap to assist the legal profession in embarking on the path to technology applications. The DOJ also plans to issue ethical and security guidelines for the legal profession to follow when using law tech. Phase 2 will be to promote the profession's engagement with law tech products. We intend to organize an exhibition of law tech products to enable the legal profession to experience a variety of law tech products available in the market and to identify law tech solutions suitable for their business development. In addition, we are considering drawing up a list of law tech products available in the market through a market survey so as to provide more comprehensive information for the legal sector's reference. Phase 3, promoting the use of law tech in the legal profession. The DOJ will encourage local and overseas law tech enterprises to establish a presence in the local market, thereby fostering the growth of our own law tech ecosystem. We will review the effectiveness of the above strategies and take measures to promote the use of law tech in the legal profession as appropriate. We will also review the existing legal framework from time to time to better support and regulate the development of innovative and emerging legal technologies. Through the above strategies, we will effectively enhance the awareness and use of law tech by the legal profession, thereby enhancing the efficiency and quality of professional services and strengthening Hong Kong's position as an international legal services and dispute resolution center in the Asia-Pacific region. Thank you, President. Ms. Maggie CHAN. Thank you, President. I also thank the Secretary for his detailed reply. Now, the DOJ mentioned that the application of law tech will be implemented in 3 phases. Now, there is a roadmap, but is there a concrete timetable and are there concrete KPIs set for the target? Now, will there be tax concession for adoption of law tech equipment? And will the government also set up cloud storage platform with a low cost to speed up the adoption of the technology by the legal sector? Secretary. President, as I've mentioned in the main reply, the policy will be implemented in 3 phases. Now, for phase 1, law tech awareness and education, we have started organizing a series of roundtable and activities to strengthen the awareness of law tech among legal practitioners. Very soon, by the end of this year, we will organize the first law tech exhibition and kickstart the second phase to promote the profession's engagement with law tech products. And also, we will start drawing up ethical and moral guidelines for the trade to follow. Now, when the results from phases 1 and 2 have become apparent, we will enter phase 3, that is promoting the use of law tech in the legal profession. By then, we will consider the incentives mentioned by Ms. Maggie CHAN. By then, we will review the ecosystem of the trade as well as Hong Kong's economic situation, as well as our own fiscal position. We will try to provide policy initiatives and incentives to attract legal practitioners to use law tech. Mr. Johnny Ng, President, I'm pleased to learn that the government is actively promoting the use of AI in the legal profession. Now, I've tried the app Lexi Hong Kong, but according to some news reports, and also it is my own experience, the AI is not very accurate. So continuous improvements on the app's accuracy is important. Secretary, I've also been made aware of the media reports mentioned by the member. Now, this is a trial stage. Of course, there is bound to be many issues. There's much room for improvement. Now, I understand that Mr. Johnny Ng has also offered some great insights on this. This is an important stage for improvements of products. Now, besides large language models, within our law tech and AI ecosystems, in recent years, local and mainland law tech enterprises or even overseas players have attached importance to our markets. Now, our upcoming policy measures will be to attract more overseas law tech enterprises to establish a presence in Hong Kong, to enrich the variety of our law tech products and encourage use. Guidelines will be put in place to remind the legal profession that besides adopting AI to enhance their efficiency, they must also be aware of the risk accompanied, for example, accuracy, privacy, and moral pitfalls. So through the expert group and the consultation group on law tech development, we will formulate the guidelines according to their recommendations to help the trade to use the AI responsibly. Mr. Ambrose Lam. President, the basic law allows our courts to make reference to case laws in other common law jurisdiction in handing down a judgment. Now, to train an appropriate AI model for small and medium-sized law firms to use, massive amounts of data is involved. Now, for technology enterprises, cost and capability are both problems. Now, we are a small market and we can't rely on the market force to develop a highly accurate AI system which suits our needs. Does the DOJ have a policy in mind to attract larger technology enterprises to establish a large and accurate data pool for the use of SM for small and medium-sized law firms? If the data pool is not accurate, it would be harmful to the smaller law firms because they don't have the resources to verify the data. Secretary. President, I thank Mr. Ambrose Lam for his concern. Indeed, in promoting the use of law tech products by the local industry, we are also aware of the risk of inaccurate data. Now, over the past year, the DOJ has sent representatives to attend international law tech forums to keep tab with the latest developments in law tech internationally. Recently, our colleagues have been to Singapore and London to attend these exhibitions and forums. Now, law tech's uses are cross-jurisdictional. So we have a team of colleagues looking at products which may suit local needs. Now, some of these products all even enable access to data in the mainland by users in Hong Kong. So in choosing a viable product, we will see whether the products can suit Hong Kong and the mainland's needs. Now, for law tech enterprises in the mainland, as I've mentioned in the main reply, the design is usually targeting the mainland market. But many of these enterprises are eyeing the Hong Kong market as well. They would like to have a share in the market. Now, the member said, with our small market size, how can we attract other enterprises to come to Hong Kong? Well, actually, the mainland enterprises are not just eyeing after the Hong Kong common law market. With a model suitable to our markets, they can use us as a springboard to tap into other common law jurisdiction markets. Now, this is exactly our strength under one country, two systems. We can attract mainland and overseas law tech enterprises to come and collaborate with our local firms and establish a law tech ecosystem and speed up the growth of the ecosystem here. I'm happy to see that over the past year, many mainland enterprises have shown interest in our markets. We will consider what policy facilitation we can offer these enterprises to expand the pool of products in Hong Kong. Dr. Kennedy Wong. Thank you, President. I'm pleased to see that the DOJ attaches much importance to the application of law tech and AI in the legal sector. Now, point 3 in the main reply, the DOJ pointed out the challenges faced by small and medium-sized law firms. They have limited understanding of law tech, and the adoption rate is underwhelming. However, these law firms account for 95% of our legal market. So will the Secretary make reference to other bureaus, for example, the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau? They have established dedicated fund, for example, the BUD Fund for transformation of SMEs. For example, there is an e-commerce easy fund under the BUD Fund for that purpose. So will the government establish a fund to support upgrading and transformation of small and medium-sized law firms in Hong Kong in AI adoption? Secretary. Now, for small and medium-sized law firms to use law tech, providing them with dedicated financial support is important. As I said, our policy is separated into 3 phases. Now, the legal sector is traditionally reluctant to embrace law tech. Many legal practitioners are used to an established workflow. So how can we raise their awareness? That's our goal in phase 1. In phase 2, we will help them choose suitable products in the market that can actually help them improve efficiency with a high safety coefficient. For example, risk of data leakage and other risks. For example, suspension of support of discontinuation of the product. Now, after phase 2, the illegal trade will have higher awareness in terms of the risk pertaining to law tech. So after that, in phase 3, we will consider, within the scope of our available resources, how can we promote the use of law tech by the trade. Now, under the ITIB, resources have been set aside to support the adoption of technology by various industries, including the legal profession. So if situation allows, we will launch more initiatives to help the trade in phase 3 to select the appropriate products to help enhance their service quality. Professor Priscilla Leung. President, I declare interest back in year 2000. I have done something similar. That is, we translated the case law in the mainland into English and promoted it to the world. Now, before I became a Legislative Council member, my business has been sold to Westlaw. So you need to travel around half the globe to sell your product. Now, when we are talking about popularizing the use of law tech products, we have to make sure that the users are responsible users. Now, there is a US law firm which has been caught in trouble because the case law they used are not the most updated one. The law firms relied on outdated data, and in the end, they need to pay a substantial sum of compensation. So my question for the Secretary is, in your 3-phase promotional campaign, we have to understand that no technology can replace human lawyers. And also the linkage with the mainland legal system is very important because we are on the same boat. But I don't see any mentioning in the main reply about that. Secretary, as I've stressed, we will help the trade to use law tech wisely. We understand that law tech products are only tools. Clients are purchasing high-quality professional services from lawyers. Now, let me give you an example. Just the Sunday past, I and my family went to a hotel to enjoy a dinner, so I used DeepSeek to see whether there is a parking discount. Now, DeepSeek told me that you would enjoy 3 hours of free parking if you spend $1,000. But even with the answer available, I would still verify the data on the website of the hotel. That is the same for law tech products. Like Professor Priscilla Leung said, when the AI gives you a case law, you need to verify its authenticity. You need to take one more step. The link would be provided by the AI, so you should click on the link to see whether the case authority is still valid. That's our due diligence.
口頭質詢。
Last question seeking an oral reply. Honorable LAM San-keung. President, in recent years there have been cases of indecent assault on public transport which cause public concern. There are views that it is difficult to avoid physical contact in crowded vehicle compartments, and this could be mistaken for indecent assault. At the same time, public expectations for safety, comfort, and mutual respect among passengers on public transport are increasing. In this connection, will the government inform this council, one, of the number of indecent assault reports on public transport received by the police in each of the past 5 years, and the percentage of indecent assault out of the total number of crimes occurring on public transport? The number of convictions among these indecent assault cases, whether it knows the average time taken by the courts to handle these indecent assault cases, and 2, whether it will consider introducing women-only or men-only zones or compartments on public transport mass carriers, for example, the MTR and franchise buses. If so, of the implementation timetable. If not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Security. President, the police attach great importance to all sexual offense cases and will conduct a thorough investigation into each case, particularly those taking place on public transport. At present, sexual offenses on public transport are mainly indecent assault cases, that is, offense of indecent assault under the Crimes Ordinance, for which offenders shall be liable on conviction on an indictment to imprisonment for 10 years. There are also cases of voyeurism and unlawful recording or observation of intimate parts, commonly known as upskirting, both of which carry a maximum penalty of 5 years of imprisonment under the Crimes Ordinance. The police will continue to strengthen patrols by uniformed and plainclothes officers and will work closely with public transport operators to combat indecent assault and related offenses on public transport. In parallel, the police will step up publicity and education efforts to enhance public awareness and encourage the public to report crimes. In consultation with the Transport and Logistics Bureau, the reply to the question is as follows. 1. In the past 5 years, the number of reports received by the police on sexual offenses on public transport, interchanges, transport stations, including indecent assault, voyeurism, and unlawful recording or observation of intimate parts under the Crimes Ordinance, accounted for about 7% to 21% of all cases occurred on public transport. Please refer to the annex for details. For the first 5 months of 2025, the police received a total of 141 such reports, which accounted for about 14% of the total number of cases on public transport interchanges or transport stations. The government does not have a breakdown on the number of convictions of the above sexual offenses by place of occurrence, or the statistics on the time taken by courts to handle such cases. 2. The introduction of women-only or men-only zones or cars on mass public transport modes such as MTR and franchise buses involved a number of considerations. The public transport system in Hong Kong carries a total patronage of more than 11 million passengers trips daily, with the MTR and franchise buses being the main mode of transport used, handling over 5 million and 3.7 million passenger trips per day respectively. The MTR is one of the railway systems with the most frequent service in the world. In 2024, the heavy rail and light rail operated over 2.71 million trips, with a service of about one train in every 2 minutes during peak hours. The MTR-CL has made reference to overseas experience, but assessed that it would not be suitable to have women-only or men-only cars in the MTR network. At present, during peak hours, station platforms are generally crowded, especially at interchange stations. The MTR-CL has to make good use of the space on the platform as well as inside cars to ease the passenger flow. Introducing dedicated cars would affect the management of passenger flow at stations and platforms as well as the flow of passengers between cars. In addition, most of the MTR train cars are of a walk-through design. It is operationally difficult to ensure passengers' compliance of the arrangement. Therefore, the MTR-CL has no plan at this stage to introduce dedicated train cars. To prevent indecent assault in the railway premises, the MTR-CL has put up posters at stations to step up the promotion of anti-crime messages on the indecent assault. Passengers are encouraged not to remain silent and to report crimes of indecent assault immediately to the police or station staff. MTR station staff have received proper training to assist the police in combating crimes. In addition, the MTR-CL and the police hold regular crime prevention meetings to share information about the latest crime trend and intelligence, and to discuss specific strategies to combat crimes. The MTR-CL also organized publicity activities in collaboration with the police, including regular anti-crime publicity activities organized every year so as to raise awareness. In respect of franchise buses, many routes have high occupancy rates during peak hours, as there is limited space in the compartments and passengers board and alight using the same aisle. Setting up dedicated areas inside the bus will affect the passenger carrying efficiency of buses. In addition, it will be operationally difficult to ensure that passengers follow the arrangements. Franchise bus companies will cooperate with the police to enhance efforts in combating crimes. Thank you. Mr. LAM San-keung. President, as it's so crowded in MTR train cars, women are scared that they will be groped. Men are afraid that they will be wrongly accused. Well, the MTR-CL in terms of pets allow pets to board the train, but they have repeatedly refused the introduction of men or women-only cars. I think, well, we don't fare as well as cars. Perhaps the MTR-CL will consider that along certain lines there will be the pilot use of men-only or women-only cars. I'll defer to the Undersecretary for Transport and Logistics. In May 2025, the MTR-CL launched a pilot scheme to allow pet owners to carry their pets, namely cats or dogs, on board the train. They have taken into consideration safety of the train service as well as the impact on other passengers. It is required that pet owners will have to use the last train door to board the train, and they have to stay in the same car along the journey. This pilot scheme, cat dog carrying trial scheme, only applies to weekends and public holidays when the patronage is lower. On individual lines or cars, well, there are many different considerations to adopt a similar measures. as we've said, that there is a walk through the sign of trains. It is very difficult, in addition, to ensure passenger compliance. The purpose of women or men-only cars is to avoid physical contact or to prevent sexual offenses such as indecent assault or upskirting. These measures will have to be put in place during peak hours for them to be effective. We have to carefully assess the situation if the pilot scheme is put to use in off-peak hours. We need to consider whether the data collected will be of high reference and whether there are other unintentional issues. When it comes to setting up dedicated cars along train lines, it is not a common practice. Having considered the operation of MTRCL as well as other factors, they are of the view that it is not suitable to set up dedicated men or women-only cars. Thank you. Mr. Dominic Lee. Just now, in the main reply, it says that there are a total of however many number of cases of sexual offenses. But what about a report mechanism? Do you have any figures of the number of crimes reported and the number of cases when these cases do not end up in prosecutions? The number of reports is the number of cases reported. The detection rate is about 70 to 80%. The conviction rate is about 60%. That is, these are the figures for the past few years. We look at the average highest penalty is an imprisonment. The maximum penalty dished out is an imprisonment of several years. Now these are the figures the member asked for. Mr. Porte, the numbers themselves are not shocking, but I believe that majority of victims may not report the case to the police. The actual situation may be much worse. In other places with busy train service in Japan, say for example, they have this arrangement in place. Just now the official said that the MTRCL has drawn reference from the practice of different cities. Well, sometimes we're not just talking about crowdiness. We can draw reference from the practice in Japan. The government's talking about making changes, being innovative. Can you adopt an innovative approach? Maybe at other ends of the train, there will be dedicated cars. In the middle, it will be a mixed mode. You can draw reference from the practice in Japan. Who is to take this question? Indeed, the MTRCL has strong reference from overseas experience in the possible introduction of dedicated train cars. The MTRCL is aware that dedicated train cars is not a common practice in other parts of the world. Well, perhaps you think that Japan is a place of a higher reference value because we share similar culture. I agree. Yes, there may be a way to do it. However, we need to consider the impact on operation as well as the cost effectiveness. We admit that dedicated cars may help to keep the number of crimes down, but there are also other problems. Say, for example, a passenger may inadvertently enter the wrong car. This will have an impact on the operation of train services. The MTRCL has considered the different factors and decided not to adopt this approach. To fight sexual crimes, the MTRCR has put up posters, enhanced their publicity campaign to raise the awareness of passengers against voyeurism or upskirting. There are also CCTVs installed inside cars. The main purpose of the CCTV is to capture the situation inside the cars, to monitor passenger flow. The installation of CCTVs helps in a certain way to help keep crime figures down. Dr. Kennedy Wong. When it comes to public transport, it includes taxis or online booking service of taxis. We are aware that in some taxis there are cameras inside the compartment. Can we ask the message be sent to drivers that if they have installed cameras, a clear sign should be put up? Or, under what circumstances would you handle a case when a certain bodily part of a passenger is captured? Secretary. Well, we'll be able to supply relevant figures. Well, it will reduce conflicts. And I think the member's question is whether there is illicit installation of cameras to capture images of passengers' private, intimate parts. When we receive a complaint, we'll be able to collect evidence. We just visit the taxi, and if there is indeed a camera, we will retrieve the footage to see if there is evidence to warrant arrest. Dr. Ngamenyu. Whenever we have a discussion about women-only train cars, the government's reply is that it's difficult to manage passenger flow, it's difficult to operate. But we see that, well, we have the first-class cars in the MTR's East Rail Line is working very well. And there is also the cat dog carrying trial scheme is also working very well. Perhaps the government can talk to the MTRCL, drawing reference from the first-class arrangement of the East Rail, so that there will be effective segregation of passengers that will end up in dedicated women-only cars. Undersecretary. We thank the members' views. The government and the MTRCL will actively consider his views. The member mentioned about first-class compartments. If the patronage is high, the first-class compartment charges a higher fee. Will a different fare be charged for women-only cars? Will it be accepted by the public? I think we have to carefully study these issues. Reverend Kun. I think this is not just a problem that is feared by women, but by men as well, because we don't want misunderstanding. I heard from the secretary that there are CCTVs installed, but will the number of CCTVs be increased so that evidence will be effectively collected when someone makes a report? Who is to take this question? From the information I have, all train cars of the MTRCL have CCTVs. I don't really understand what the member said by increasing the number. There are signs inside the cars that CCTV is in operation. Ms. Nixie Lam. In reply to a number of members, the Secretary talked about various considerations, hence it cannot be done. So what are these considerations? How will you be able to do it? We don't want to hear why you can't do it. What we want to hear is that you can do it and this is how it's done. Undersecretary, we thank Ms. Lam for the question. Our main consideration is actual operation. In addition, we consider passenger flow in and outside the station. So if there are dedicated train cars, passenger flow will be affected. During peak hours, the patronage of MTRCL service is huge. Is dedicated train cars the only way to reduce the number of indecent assault cases? Not necessarily. Even with dedicated train cars, there are mixed cars as well. When different passengers are packed in the same compartment, there will still be cases. We have to carefully consider different considerations. Dr. Elizabeth Quat, we hear about these cases a lot. We hear about indecent assault cases on trains. The victims suffer a lot. Well, there is this trial scheme for pets. What we want is that at least you try to introduce a women-only compartment so that they have a choice. Over the years, we have been asking for the same thing. You don't even try. Without even trying, how do you know that it will not be effective? Undersecretary, I have heard the view of Dr. Quat. Members would like to see a pilot scheme to try it out. I have explained that during peak hours there are indeed actual difficulties. As to whether we can try it during non-peak hours, we will have to, however, consider the reference value of data collected during non-peak hours. I do understand that dedicated cars will give a choice to women. We have heard members' views. We'll talk to the MTRCL to see if they will have some other ideas.
首讀。
Government bills first reading.